We're back with a Fox News alert. An agreement to restore the Iran nuclear deal expected within days. Russia, there to broker the deal as it attacks Ukraine. Today, you're watching oil prices. The average price of regular gasoline topped $4 a gallon, and premium gas prices across the country hit a new all-time high. Crude oil is at its highest point in about a decade, this fueling Republican backlash of Biden's energy policies.
The administration's choices when he first came into office put us in this tenuous position with energy independence in the United States. Instead of being an exporter of energy, we became a consumer of Russian oil. This needs to stop.
This notion that somehow banning Russian oil would raise prices on American consumers is an admission that this guy, that this killer, that this butcher, Vladimir Putin, has leverage over us. Why would we want that leverage to continue? Why would we have someone like him to have the power to raise gas prices on Americans?
We have weakened ourselves, and it's because the leftists, their focus is on climate as their religion. What we have to do is say common sense has to prevail in that. We are an energy-based economy.
Sean, it's astonishing that President Biden hadn't stood up in front of the American people and at least made the case of why are they paying. We're this close to paying record high gasoline prices in this country. Tomorrow we'll probably hit a new record north of $4.11 a gallon. And diesel prices tomorrow are going to hit a new record high. That filters through inflation because trucking and flying anything and everything in this country to its destination is going to cost more. And Biden is nowhere to be found in explaining this to the American people.
So I'm going to explain it, Dagen, because oil, however you guys say oil, is oil, right? So whether it comes from Venezuela or Iran or Russia, by the way, American oil is cleaner than Russian oil. It begs the question, why don't we produce American oil? It's American jobs, it's American security, it's American revenue to our federal coffers. And I think the answer is in the thought leader of the Democrat Party, which is Bernie Sanders, right? Bernie Sanders loved the communist Venezuelans. He loved the old Soviet Union. He signed on to the Iran deal. So these are people who don't believe in making America strong. Their policies make America weak. That if we go even to the Green New Deal, where do we buy windmills from and solar panels and batteries from? Not in America. We buy them from China. And take another step further, Dagen, they're trying to teach our kids critical race theory, teach our American kids how to hate their history and hate their country. So I am really hard-pressed to make an argument how Democrats love America and want America to be strong, because everything they do is making this country weaker and less secure, less safe, and we're spending way more money as they implement their policies.
Joey, Sean mentioned Venezuela. U.S. officials have gone down to meet with the Venezuelan regime to discuss oil exports that were cut off beginning in 2019 by the Trump administration. Russia, in the middle of the Iran deal, wants guarantees that Ukraine-related sanctions won't prevent it from trading with Tehran. And you've got Anthony Blinken now talking about the U.S. is weighing a Russian oil ban. I don't understand. By the way, U.S. refiners are already cutting off buying additional Russian oil. About a third of Russian oil of exports are already off the market. But I don't know how any of this makes sense in terms of this administration wants to continue to buy oil from regimes that hate us, like Venezuela, but won't sign off on one new drilling permit here in the U.S.
Yeah, well, you can spit in my face and tell me it's raining, but thankfully we have Fox weather, right? So there's a litmus test here on information. When Jen Psaki stands at the podium and says that our gas prices are going up because Russia's invading Ukraine, that is textbook gaslighting, and it tells you the administration is not interested in an honest conversation about this. These things don't happen overnight. Russia isn't the singular reason why our gas and energy is going through the roof, just like meat packers aren't why we have inflation in the grocery store. But an administration willing to blame meat packers for inflation on groceries is very willing to blame Russia for bad energy policy. All of these things are things that have built up over the last couple of years or several years. And I think that the nuance here is what gets overlooked. It's not about just more drilling. It's not about just a pipeline. It's about administration having a posture towards energy that gets American investors excited and allows us to go tap the energy we have, and that's what we don't have.
Well, there hasn't been one new onshore federal lease from the Biden administration in his time in office. I can talk. The day this man took office, I started talking about they're taking a jackhammer to our energy sector. And it is American prosperity and also gives us power over nations that hate us. So we ceded power and wealth to Vladimir Putin by not opening up the spigot, if you will, by releasing leases and drilling in this country, Alicia. And this is what's happened. We don't have any way of fighting. We don't have any way of cutting off Vladimir Putin and Russian oil exports because we're not drilling enough in the United States.
So what I can tell you is after the Keystone Pipeline project was cut off, I went to Nebraska and talked to the workers who were down there. But I also talked to the governor, Pete Ricketts, Republican of Nebraska, who made the point that, first of all, the demand doesn't change, right? And if we're talking about climate change and you're worried about your carbon footprint, a produced barrel of oil is a produced barrel of oil. Regardless of where that happens, there's going to be a carbon footprint to the earth. And so if you're looking at, let's say, Venezuela, then you're also talking about adding the fossil fuels that it takes to get it here, because it has to then travel. And that's where his frustration came, and I think a lot of Americans are experiencing that as well.
I'll just quote Andy Lippow, Alicia. Yeah, what, Sean? Is that Joey or Sean?
One last point. This is Sean. So I think we can't also forget that the woke Wall Street banks and hedge fund managers that control a lot of American money now, because they're so woke, don't want to invest in oil and gas. And so sometimes the money flow to get these new wells online isn't there. They've all gone crazy woke.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add one thing. Andy Lippow, who I rely on, he's a great source for information on the oil and gas business. The U.S. is producing all it can right now. To increase production, we have to drill more wells. If we want more oil in the U.S., we have to drill for it. Don't dial 1-800-OPEC. OPEC Plus, that includes Russia. And about 7 months into the Biden administration, they actually had the audacity to ask OPEC to pump more oil, ask Russia to pump more oil. That's the idiocy of this administration. Alicia, back to you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.